Alright. Hello, Aorbor, Uchiha, and the one or two subscribers that might actually watch this video. Welcome back to Days of Future Past. And I'm probably going to label this video as Days, not Days, but rather I Am Alive 3 something something edition. Anyways, I just recently watched Aorbor and Uchiha's videos, and I will be responding to those questions and inquiries that they have there. So, Aorbor asks if we have any ideas for the group tattoo. I have one, might be a little far-fetched. I might need to explain it a little bit more to them later, but we would have three different symbols, each representing a different aspect of the human soul. One of them being a snake wrapped around a fruit. The other one being a fuelless fire, kind of like the energy card on the Pokemon trading card game. The other one would be a wheel of samsara, representing life through death, probably in the form of a flower, a wilted flower, a dead, desolate, patch of grass, dirt rather, and then a budding sprout, or a sprouting bud, one or the other. And those three, I think, represent different aspects of the human soul. The first one being how Satan, the snake, tempted Eve into eating the fruit of knowledge, therein giving her knowledge, which then can kind of translate into wisdom, because out of knowledge comes some wisdom, and experience. Wisdom comes out of that as well. The other one being the fire, which is a symbol of hope and determination, because there's nothing more hopeful than a light in a very, very dark place, and a fire in a very cold, dark place, nonetheless. And the Wheel of Samsara represents the cycle of life, and more specifically how emotional we tend to get around death, and how, when faced with our own mortality, we have that moment of just looking back on our lives and seeing everything that we've done and whether or not it's the life that we wanted to live. I think that brings up some emotions, and some of the more powerful emotions that we have as humans, both hate and love. Either you can hate the life that you lived, and it'll show in how grumpy you were as an old person, or you could love the life you live, and it'll probably show based on how just fun and awesome you are as an old person, just throwing out money and all that sort of stuff. Anyways, that's my idea for a group tattoo. We each get one of those symbols, and then we can tattoo or initial the other two's names. On that symbol. Like, for instance, I'd probably put it on the shoulder. That way it's kind of out of the way. It's not front and center, but it's, still there. And have A and D initialed somewhere on the symbol that I have. And that's my idea. Tell me what you think, guys. And if you want to know more in depth as to why I picked those specific things and what they mean, then by all means go ahead and ask away. I'll explain it to you in person. Anyways, we can move on to Uchiha's question, which is if I had any regrets about anything in my past, and if I had a time machine, would I go back and change it? Now, I am going to say no. I would not go back and change anything. As a matter of fact, if I could go back and do it all over, I wouldn't change a damn thing. And I'm not just saying that because Aorbor and Uchiha were also along the lines of thought that whatever they did in the past made them who they were. I kind of agree with that. We've spent a lot of time with each other. I think that's just an idea that we've all sort of adopted. But in depth as to why I wouldn't personally change anything has something to do with Kant, Immanuel Kant, the 18th century German philosopher. He is a tough read, but he makes a lot of sense when you do read him. And in his moral philosophy, He stated that when you do something good, you have to do it because it's good in and of itself. There are no other ulterior motives, there's no other reason why you do it, and if you get something good out, something that benefits you out of doing that good thing, great, but that's not the primary reason that you should be doing that thing. For instance, you shouldn't steal because it'll get you a cookie at the end of the day. You shouldn't steal because it's simply just the good thing to do. And the reason why I wouldn't go back and change anything kind of has something to do with that, because I like to operate under the assumption that free will does exist and that we are responsible for the decisions that we make. We have to accept those consequences, just like the beginning of Persona 3, when Igor tells you that whatever decisions you make are your own, and you will accept the consequences of them. The contract that you signed, it's not with Igor, it's with that little kid, Pharos, that's his name. And whatever decisions you make of your own accord. You have freedom of will, therefore you would not be able to blame it on anyone else or anything else for the decisions that you made. For instance, when you have a regret over a decision, you have a certain kind of expectation maybe for that decision, and then when it doesn't live up to that expectation, you regret making that decision and you'd rather make something else. Or when someone else makes a decision for you, someone or something else does make that decision for you, you end up regretting it because you did not make that decision yourself. So in order to have take responsibility for those decisions and to not have regrets, I think a key component in my life that I want to have is freedom of will. That way I can take responsibility for that action. I can claim that I made it good or did something good because I chose to do that thing in and of itself, not because some chemicals in my brain forced me to do it, or because someone else suggested I do it, or my hand was forced. I can make the decision all on my own like a big boy. And the way that regret kind of plays into that is because if my brain was making those chemical imbalances, making me do the act, then I can't really claim that I was the one making the decision. Now, there's a whole bunch of other metaphysical nonsense that goes into that, but let's leave it at that. I couldn't claim that I made that decision because something in my brain forced it. This is something that a lot of physicists and philosophers do argue back and forth about, is that if the world is deterministic, then it's on a set path, it's on a set time scale. There are no branching paths, there's only one way to go, and we're just along for the ride. And that really shines through in the 18th century with classical physics, where like Newton, Leibniz, those guys, they came up with theories of gravity and the laws of nature and how things act in a certain way. Regardless of what you do to it, it'll always act in that way. Like when you throw a ball up in the air, it will fall down to the earth, etc., etc. So using that, they kind of developed a mechanistic or deterministic worldview in which if everything is just a product of cause and effect in chain reactions, this happens, then this happens, then this happens, like a butterfly effect, then what point is there in punishing someone for doing the thing they did if they were predetermined to do it? And predetermination is one of those things that I don't really like, because then it kind of takes away the beauty of the decision you make or the actions you do, because then you can't say that that person is great because they were just hardworking, they did all the things right, they were just great. You can't say that because they were predestined to be great either way. And I mean, if you're gonna take credit for for that, then it's not weird, but it seems rather disingenuous to take credit for something that you know was going to happen anyways, right? Like, oh hey, the sun's going to rise tomorrow. Guess what? I did that. No, I mean, come on. The sun's going to rise tomorrow. It doesn't matter what you did. And that's kind of why I like freedom of choice, and why I don't try to live my life with any regrets, because then that means to me, if I have a regret, then I didn't necessarily make the choice in and of itself for the choice. I know Kant does explain this a lot better. I probably sound like a madman right now, but I'm trying my best to explain it, and how regret kind of falls into that, and why I wouldn't go back and do anything any different at all. Simply because if I did, it would mean I have regrets. And if I have regrets, then that means there was something there that I didn't wholeheartedly agree to. I didn't want to do that decision or live my life simply because I wanted to live my life. You know, I didn't want to do the thing in and of itself. I did it for ulterior motives, and then those ulterior motives did not come through, and ended up getting disappointed, and I went, ah, shucks, I should have done this other thing. I try to live my life with as little of those as possible. Try to make decisions, not because someone else is telling me to do it, or because chemicals in my brain are trying to make me do something, but because I want to make that decision. And sure, the person or other things can egg me on a little bit, but at the end of the day, I want to be sure that I'm the one who's making the decisions and not something else. And it's not necessarily a whole vein of control that I want to have control of my life. It's just, if I'm going to do something, I want to do it because I want to do it, not because something else is making me do it, essentially. If free will doesn't exist, though, I would still be okay with that, because I just find something romantic and beautiful about fighting fate and destiny. For instance, the end of Persona 3, when the main characters just kicked Death's ass. Minato Arasado, he was just like, nope, I'm Jesus, boom. And then everything was just okay. It's like, holy shit, that was awesome. I find something beautiful about fighting an impossible fight. 0% chance, that's as good as 100%. Sign me up. And with that there, I think that's mainly my view on those two things. Again, short answer, I wouldn't change anything at all. And now we can get to my question. Growing up, I guess, how have your role models influenced thoughts and philosophies that you have now? For instance, myself, I idolized Himura Kenshin because I thought, man, that guy's cool as balls. Goes around kicking ass and chewing bubblegum, and he's all out of bubblegum. And he's a pacifist, and in my life I try to be a pacifist, as I am now. I try to avoid conflict, and whenever disagreements arise, I do tend to wane towards the popular opinion or the least controversial opinion. That way there won't be anything that pops up. But as I've noticed about myself, I kind of hate doing that, to be honest. It happened a lot during high school, and now I kind of hate doing it, and now I'm kind of shifting over to the whole, the more people say they like this thing, the more I'm going to hate it. The less they like this thing, the more I'm going to like it. I don't know if that's hipster or whatever, but I hate things that are just popular and liking things because people say that it's something that you should like. Uh, Anyways, I think that's one way that one of my role models have influenced the way I think and act. Another one would be Minato Arasado. A lot of Himura Kenshin as well. Just get along with everybody, be, I guess, amicable, and while that it hasn't gotten me out of trouble, but it hasn't gotten me into trouble, it just kind of flattens me out. You know, in high school I got along with a lot of people. I was just, I just said whatever. I didn't have many enemies and have many people who hated my guts. I just, said whatever was least controversial to get on everybody's good side. And as time goes on, I guess I still kind of do that. And the only places where I do say controversial things are in front of Awarbor and Uchiha and my family members, because they're the only ones who can put up with my shit. So, thank you guys for putting up with my shit. I would love to hear what you guys have to say on how role models have affected your thought and philosophies. And I suppose live fast, die young,